the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AVWeek, episode 79, recorded Friday, February 22nd, 2013. Klein Tools.
Ready.
AVWeek.
Performing scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AVWeek. AVWeek. It's time for AVWeek, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, for downloading and or streaming, depending on what you're doing with your computer right now. With us this week is Mr. Bill Brown. He is the Client Technology Advocate at BD Brown Communications. Welcome, sir.
Welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
Also with us is Mr. George Tucker, the Engineering Coordinator at World Stage in New York. How are you, sir?
In New York, New York. Hello, everybody.
Yay!
Yay.
This week we're going to talk a little bit about HDMI and HDCP because it's all evil and a plot to take over the world. Red is suing Sony because, you know, they're the ones who invented 4K. At least I think they did. I think they did. And a story from the BBC, which kind of made my heart warm when George sent it to me. Have 3D films had their day? But first, from Fort Mills Times, the Crestron people, guys over in New Jersey way, they're taking Microsoft Lync and they're taking it to the conference room. Here's the thing that with Lync specifically, Lync is being used by an awful lot of guys nowadays, especially in the world of AV. You've got telecommunications and video conference guys who are using it to plug into and kind of get onto already existing Lync systems. George, is this a natural progression? Is this something that didn't surprise you, or was this kind of a left-hand turn for Crestron?
Well, I don't think it surprised me per se, but it is a very chancy thing. I mean, you've got this very consumer-oriented. Yeah, I know it's made for.
I was going to say, don't consumerish because it's it's an enterprise product, right?
Yeah, no, I was backtracking on myself there a little bit,
sorry.
but it is using things like Skype.
Yeah,
it is using certain platforms that were not really commercial grade or commercial oriented, and sort of combining them into a commercial product, I guess, as it were. It took me a long time in thinking about it, but I kind of like the idea. It's a very quick setup, and they're using a dedicated touchscreen. Yay, look, there's a reason for dedicated touchscreens in a commercial environment to set up quickly and go. I think it's a really chancy thing, but I believe that it will be very good for them.
Bill, is that George right? This is kind of good for Crestron to do. Polycom is another company that has tied into and is using Lync an awful lot to do kind of this thing only on the video conferencing side, where they're bringing in stuff like Skype and Google Talk. Is this a good step for Crestron, maybe?
Yes, in some cases, I kind of made the assumption that they would have been here sooner, and I didn't know about it, and so this seems like an obvious thing for them from my standpoint. It just, if they want to have that holistic room approach of, Crestron, we can handle it all. I think a couple months ago they're looking at the lights and the blinds and and doing that. So the more that they help the end user really have that seamless understanding of that Microsoft product, I think it makes more sense, and it's kind of what's taken them so long to get here.
Okay, let me ask you one thing on that, Bill, though. I understand the whole idea Crestron can do it all. I get that. I understand that. Sometimes I'm not quite sure with that, though.
Right.
A couple months ago, they released the Shades things, and I made I made my bones about that one at the time. This week, I didn't put this in the show notes because I actually just thought of it. they released or had another press release on Crestron speakers. Is there a point where they should, when they shouldn't do stuff? I mean, and I'm just asking you, just kind of somewhat tongue in cheek, but also in seriousness. Should they stop at maybe projectors and screens? I don't know.
I think they should stop at projectors and screen. And I did see the speakers, and I was like, no. It is the control aspect, the smart room, the seamless connections. That's what they're known for, and I think for the most part they do that very well. And they are starting to, when they get into the speakers and the other things, it kind of dilutes their message. And I think when you look at the speakers, they're losing focus. They're losing focus.
Yeah, I don't know if I actually agree. They've had speakers for quite a while, actually. I think they introduced a line of speakers with one of their audio lines about 3 years ago, maybe 4. And while I don't think they're shooting to be the home theater ultimate speaker system, I do think that they're looking to fulfill the niche of the media room. And here's part of the thing. I believe that people have been asking them for this kind of products because they want that one vendor, one stop shop, not just for the gear, but when there's a problem, they want to be able to call qualified people and get an answer. And there's a market for this kind of sort of mid-range, and I think I mean that both price-wise and audio-wise.
Very nice.
Mid-range install of a media room, of a corporate office, of a sort of fill for a lobby. These things will work for that. And I see Bill's point that they're losing focus, or it could seem like they're losing focus, but I think they're responding to an actual demand.
Well, I think it's more of not just looking for one vendor or one, in some cases, one person to blame. It is more of, I think the end users are screaming out to our industry, play nice, work together. We want to basically have some ownership of the technology that we bring into our organization. And if you guys create standards or if you guys create protocols, it will make it easier so we don't have to go to one vendor. But because you don't play nice, now I'm, in some cases, stuck with a Crestron to do everything because they do this well, so let's try to do it. Let's try to make them do it all.
Let me turn that on its head and ask both of you guys. There are speaker companies or audio companies that are putting out controllers for their speakers, which are slowly turning into automation systems. Mm-hmm. Are we making the argument on them as well to not go into that because they don't do it so well or because they shouldn't be in that arena? There's a lot of pressure, I think, both vertically and horizontally in these product lines where everybody's sort of crossing over and there's really no going back.
Right.
Well, and the thing about that is you have companies who, okay, so there are core competencies, right? And one thing that Crestron obviously has done well for many, many years is control. And a few years ago, and I say more than a few years ago, they started doing video over Twisted Pair. It was called Quick Media, and they moved on from there, and that has developed into DM, which is digital media. And so they've gotten into the AV side, I guess, of the industry rather than the control side. However, I don't know that just because you make a good speaker means you can make a good control system. And conversely, I don't think the opposite is true either. So whether that is Biamp and them making controllers for their Tessera, or it's Crestron making speakers, I don't know that either one is a natural fit. Now, if they make them and they sound great, great, that's awesome. But I think that we're in a point in this industry, especially when it comes to control, and everything's moving to IP, and there are just some things here that I'd love to have their focus on that, and let's get that figured out instead of giving me a pair of 4-inch speakers.
I hear you. I do, and I wonder if it's a I don't want to say a straw man in the argument, but I wonder if that's sort of a misnomer to say if they only dedicated those engineers working the speakers to this problem that I think is their core issue right now, things would be better. But it's not true because they subdivide so discreetly.
And they may be OEMing them too. I mean, I have no idea. I didn't go into the specifics of the press release that much. I just saw the the speakers again. So, and something else that they do and Crestron both does, and I don't know why I'm getting off on this. These stupid lanyard microphones. Have you seen these?
Yes.
No.
Oh my gosh, those are horrible. I mean, it looks like honestly, it looks like the first like lapel mic I ever saw, which is basically a microphone with a string through it, and you hang it over your neck.
Those.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It reminds me of the very 1950s mics that used to have the handless.
What was it? The Yamaha, the Yamaha guide to mixing. The guide to mixing. That this was written originally in like the 70s or the 80s, and that was one of the lapel mics that they were showing in there. So I don't know. I don't get it. All right, let's talk about lawsuits, shall we? Something that we've talked about on this show, and actually a couple of specials that we produced, is 4K. And 4K has been around for quite a while. And it's been around for so long, in fact, that people are moving on to 8K now. But one of the first cameras to come out was the Red, right? And it was nice and it was small, and I think the entry level price a couple of years ago was about $15,000 for the body, and then you bought the glass. Well, Sony being Sony, and I'm not saying that they did anything wrong by any stretch of the imagination here, but they have gotten into the 4K business, and actually they've also gotten into the 8K as well. So much so, in fact, that Red is suing them now over some patents that have been disputed. Bill, is this kind of just the technology itself developing and maturing, and we're at that point? The 4K is at that maturity level where people who have been doing it for years are going to start slapping people with lawsuits because, hey, you know what, dude? I've been doing this for 10 years, and you're just now stepping up to the thing, and you're using my patent over there.
At first I was, just laughing at even, consider this lawsuit here, and I don't think it's mature enough. I think for Sony to get in, I thought that you want as many players so you can differentiate yourself from the next. And I mean, the one point that they made that our customers have invested in our technology. It's not your technology. It's just what are you talking about? And so it is that type of thing that does Red think that, okay, we were first, so nobody else could possibly thinking about doing this?
Yes, that's exactly.
It's just like crazy. I just don't. I really don't understand. But there is a lot more maturing needs to go, and I think the only way that the technology can mature is players get in and fine tune it.
George, Bill makes a good point. The one thing about capitalism and the way that this whole thing works is the more people you have in it and making headway with it is you've got sometimes some people's patents may get stepped on a little bit, and sometimes it's just the technology itself that everybody's using. So does Red maybe have a case here, or are they just they're just ticked off because everybody's in their sandbox now?
I think the answer to that question is yes. All of the above. See, the problem I have here is how far did they step on it? That's the question. I think it's an issue of degrees, isn't it? Did they completely wholesale, steal, quote unquote, the technology that implements this specific cause or this specific issue? If that's true, then I think Red has a case, and they have to say, hey, look, license it for goodness sakes. We're happy to give it to you. We're not going to keep it away from you, but you're going to have to pay for it. But if it's like Bill says and you say that, they're not really, they're just sort of implementing one version of it, like, say, I don't know, FM synthesis. I know they don't use that in these cameras, but let's say they're using that so many years later. No, that's not something I could see them doing. I think they have a slight case here if they can prove it. I haven't seen any of the technical mishmash and documentation to tell me, yes, this is actually what they used and here's exactly how they copied my chip. But Red does have quite a notorious reputation for really bringing the hammer down on people, monster cable-like. I think they went after the rental industry for a number of years, saying you can't rent these cameras; it's purchase only. We will not allow the leasing of them, which really sort of stymied an entire industry.
Well, it did, and it was somewhat archaic, honestly. I mean, this is going back some. Those of you guys who have been in lighting for a number of years will remember some of the very first intelligent quote-unquote lighting. It was called Verilight. And at Verilight, you could not purchase them. Actually, it was the opposite of this. You couldn't purchase them. You had to lease them from the company. And not only that, but you also had to lease an operator. So for a number of years, it was like, do you remember these, George?
Yeah.
You do? It was where you had to basically rent these wonderful lights at the time. I mean, this is in the late 80s, early 90s. And they did some incredible things for the time. Nowadays, my phone does the same thing, but but they had such a lockdown on the technology that they would not sell you. They did nothing but leasing, and it was a pretty penny to get a rig of them. So
yeah, Verilight's had that history as well. That no, only these certain operators. No, you can't learn it. You know, I don't know how restrictive they are these days. It's a little less so, but they were very tight on it.
Well, they almost have to be now. I mean, they did not to get into lighting, but what they did 20 years ago, we're doing with any number of cans and lights using LEDs and a DMX board. Honestly, that's pretty much it. They just so in case you didn't know, Verilight, you could do some moving stuff and also color changing on the fly, which in the early 90s was revolutionary. So
yeah. Hugely,
and they made you pay for it too. So, all right, let's get into some wonderful. One of my favorite things in the whole wide world right now is HDCP, and I don't know why. I think I have a problem. I've read every single instance of the HDMI Consortium's releases and all this other jazz, just because I have an issue with them, and I have an issue with HDCP in general. Believe me, I get wanting to protect what you create. Good Lord, we do this on a weekly basis, and I don't want somebody, slapping this on their website and selling ads to it without giving us something. But so I get the whole keeping what you make and all that jazz. But when it comes to slapping draconian things onto video streams and making our jobs a little more difficult. And we're not trying to steal it. We're just trying to put your image, 15 different places. That's the issues that I'm having with HDCP. So along comes a website called Hackaday. And here's this really cool thing that lets you, I'm not going to say break the HDCP keys. I'm going to say let you find out what they are.
It's an informative
hack
for educational purposes only.
Now, George, the one problem I have with this, and again, this goes back to me reading every freaking thing that HDMI Consortium sends out.
You are just a fun guy.
You know what? This is what I do for. This is my Friday nights. Actually, I have the 4.1 thing to do tonight. Is the blacklist, right? The one piece of armor, the one shield that the HDMI guys have is that wonderful blacklist. So here's a piece of equipment that will let you circumnavigate the HDCP until the next revision goes out and they get slapped on the blacklist. Are we getting to a point where, guys like, let's use AMX and Crestron for a second because they're the two, in my opinion, the two that are handling digital video rather well and HDCP rather well. Are we getting to a point where we need to lobby this group, the HDMI Consortium, for a pro standard that says, you know what, here's AMX, here's Crestron. They're going to play by your rules. They're going to do what you want them to do. Just give them the ability to send this multiple places, and we'll pay them for the opportunity to do so.
I think there should be, yes. But you know what? There's also early on when DM was first coming out, I remember hearing from other manufacturers, you don't need those keys. You don't need to worry about it. Our device just ignores it. And basically what they were saying without saying it was they just confused the living hoo-ha out of the HDCP stuff and said, yeah, you're fine. Here's your thing back. You're fine. And then just would distribute the signal on without any concern. But that's against the code of conduct and the protocol
rules,
that they would do it. Yeah, it was against the rules. I don't know how much they've tightened it up in recent years, saying, no, you have to do that. But I know for sure that HDMI, the organization, was sort of looking the other way for a while. Like, we know it's not really going to be that successful, though. But, they're getting it out there, so that's okay. I absolutely agree. There should be a pro version. But I also think that they're really fighting a losing battle. Another 2 or 3 years, you're going to have somebody who can have a box like this, and it's going to automatically setting up Wi-Fi. You just push the button or turn on your computer, you're connected. It's going to do that. It's going to find out the black key, say, yeah, that can't be used anymore. Decode. There you go. Here it is. Boom. I mean, how long? I know there's billions and billions of keys that they can blacklist, but how long? How long before you just pop it in? I mean, are you going to send a magic bullet down it like these supposed cable companies do to kill the illegal cable boxes in the day of yore? It's becoming a losing battle for anyone when you're doing encryption like this.
So you're saying that these little blacklists are nothing more than kind of a whack-a-mole type, where they're like, you, and you. Yeah.
I mean, another couple of years, you integrate all of this stuff into one little box. I mean, how much is that little? He uses what is he using for an oscilloscope here to get into this thing? And besides this whack, he's doing the USB, the USB stuff. Those are fairly pricey, but not extraordinary. Oh, I can't say that word. Yeah, thank you. It's a new mouth. I'm getting used to it. But they're not that expensive. And nor is the software. And integrating that, to me, seems like a fairly straightforward thing to do into a little box over the next year or two. Okay,
so let me ask you this. And this is where I'll play devil's advocate, because I honestly in agreement with you, because I get that it's going to be where it's going to be more time consuming than it's going to be worth. Does there come a point, though, when people need to either just accept the fact that these are some of the controls that we have, and these are some of the constraints that we have to have the content at the price, or are we just going to continue to pay a higher premium on stuff that's unlocked down, that's not locked down, and if we don't mind it being locked down and only want to watch it on one screen or two, then we get to pay a cheaper price? Is that where we're headed?
I suppose it's possible. A two-tier or multi-tier system, which seems unwieldy to actually manage in reality. But sure, is it a possibility? Yeah, I don't know. I don't actually know the answer to this, but I can just tell you what I see coming down the pipe. And if you can do this, and Guy can do it by himself, even though he's fairly smart, doesn't take much longer for it to get out there to others who can create a box that does it for you with a push of a button.
Or he could just make it and sell it like, Jobs' and Wozniak's black box.
Exactly, the blue box, black box.
Blue box,
exactly.
Bill, are we at a point where we need to get, or at least lobby these guys, lobby the HDMI Consortium to get a pro version of HDMI?
I think so. It's, for me, it's like, is this a good use of our time and, I guess, intelligence? It's in some cases, you understand the need for protection, but in some cases, when you have devices and end users that they want these displays to do a number of different things, you're just making it difficult for us to achieve that goal, and then because of the mentality of the AV professional, it's like, okay, I can't do this. Give me some time. I'll figure it out, and I'm going to make it happen. And so the more that they understand that at the end, we're trying to help our end users. We're trying to be the AV professionals or the technology professionals that our end users need us to be. How can we protect and serve? Let's use that, and at the same time, and not waste our time, trying to hack it or work around or break rules and do all. Spend all that time to do that, and in some cases kind of miss the whole point. So it's just like I said, it's just we're going to figure out. As soon as a roadblock comes in or someone says you can't do it, there are people that are smart enough to figure out I'm going to figure this out.
Mm-hmm. Usually they're 13 years old.
Right. And and then it's like we could have spent more time really thinking forward than dealing with this. I guess that's how I see it.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense that we instead of wasting our time and our energy doing that, we can be doing other things. So. All right, you are listening to AV Week. That gentleman right there is Mr. Bill Brown. And across the way is George Tucker. This comes to us from our buddies over at EH Pub, EH Pub Electronic House is the name of the website. Is it time to tune up your home theater? And what's interesting is some of the stuff that they're talking about. Some of it's audio tuning and changing some of the settings. Some of this though is things are things that people probably have never done. Unless you either had somebody do it or you're guys like us who did it ourselves. Bill, is this something where can we take something like an article like this and people who are integrators and do this for residential, take this to their customers and say, look, if we've never done this or we haven't done this in a while, here's something that we might want to consider, whether it's making sure that everything is set up to spit out 1080p or at least the highest resolution, maybe not 1080p, but at least as high of a resolution as we can get, making sure that all the audio devices are working properly, and if it stuff needs to be on the network, it is.
Yeah, this was something I chuckled when I read this because I wanted to take it to Mrs. Brown and say, see. It's not just me. We need to do this, and and I think it is a starting point, and because a couple of clients that I kind of let know that, hey, take a look at this article. This is kind of interesting, and and they were saying, how much is that going to cost me? The first thing, but it's just something to consider that, when you operate from, it's not a problem until it's a problem, and when it's a problem, it's too late. Let's look at, at this model of checking, doing that checkup, and now that if you want, to be the house or the organization that's state of the art or whatever, if you don't want to lose your cred, you want to look at all the things that are happening and where you are, and I think this is a good place to start.
George, one thing in the world of education, which is where I spend most of my time, we have something called preventive maintenance, and this is, you know what? You don't chuckle, we do. I swear we do. Every 3 or 4 years, we do some PM. This checklist, though, reminds me of that, and it seems something like our buddies that do residential. This seems like PM for residential, is it?
Yeah, I think you're right. Exactly. And I like it even so much that, first of all, some of the things they say are right. They're pushing a few things like, your speaker drivers may be a little more elastic than they were when you first bought them. Okay, that might be true. Whether or not an average person would hear it, I don't know. But I like this in the sense that there's two things that make it work. One, you get to have someone come in, clean it up, and see if there's anything that needs to be done, so long as you trust them, right? Hey, I'm not going to find something miscellaneous like, your carburetor's not working as the way it should. The car doesn't have a carburetor. Oh, but it's still the carburetor. Is that you get in and you make sure that your system is running nicely. So with the video, with the projector, you know it's focused, you know it's aligned, you know it's tweaked to its best effect. But what I like from a dealer's point of view is this sort of managed services, this little, hey, I'm going to come in to do this service call. You really should tune up a little bit, and I'm going to make sure that you can, your resolutions are correct, and all this stuff. But it also allows you to come in with maybe a little pamphlet, maybe with a demo piece you've had from one of the manufacturers. You finish up, you go, oh, by the way, it's sort of like the mechanic when he's wiping his hands with the grease, saying, there's this new fuel injector to make this car really go, and you can show it to him, right, and say, hey, just take a look at it. It's pretty cool. I want your thought on it. I don't want, I'm not selling it to you. I want to know what you would think of it, so I can give feedback to the company. It's a great way of getting in. Some more jaded people, me, would say that it's a Trojan horse, but it's still a way in to say, hey, we haven't talked in a while. Let me show you some new stuff, and I'm going to maximize what you got now.
So is this one of those things where you go into, my in-laws who still have all analog gear, albeit it was nice when they purchased it, and they're technically, as of the analog sunset, they're not spinning 1080p anymore or 720. Where you would go into them and say, hey, here's some things, and we'll clean up your display and make sure everything's all nice and focused on everything. Oh, by the way, here's some digital things to get you up to the latest, greatest thing. So,
yeah, sort of. And once they see it, they'll never go back.
No, it's like giving you the car for the weekend.
Right, and I think that there's a fine line between this becoming an upsell moment than what you said, a preventative maintenance type of proposition here. And I think the skeptics are out there to think, okay, you're trying to sell me one more thing, and I really don't need this. And so how can we as professionals either in the higher ed space or in the residential space really take care of the end user and our clients to make sure that they have what they want and the expectations that they have for the technologies that they have to enjoy.
Bill, that's a really good point. So let me ask you this: Is this then because it is such a good time to attempt to sell and attempt to get people upgraded to stuff? Do we then not charge for this? Is that something where you would advise? Again, goes back to the two most, the one most prevalent Resi guy I have is our buddy Matt Scott, who does all of our graphics and does a very fine job. Is that where you would say, hey, you know what? Look, go through your books once every 5 or 6 years, and start making some calls again, saying, hey, you know what? It's been a few years since I've been out there. Can I come by and make sure that the system is still operating at peak capacity for free, and at that same time show you some new stuff? Or is it something where you would you would start the conversation, or somewhere in the conversation you would mention that there's a charge for this?
Right. I think and I try to do in some of my with all of my clients, but some opportunities where it's a more of an eyes wide open. This is what you have. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but here. This is what you're getting out of your projector.
Yeah.
This is what you're getting out of your speakers. If you want more, more is going, more is going to cost you this. But now you know, and that type of thing. So it can be that opportunity. I think the challenge that I have and that I see is there are so many. Let's just say there's a wide range of professionals out there. And it can be, people can be told almost anything. And so the more that we're able to have some type of standards or best practice so people can understand, you don't have a competitor going in and scaring the holy bejesus out of people. And then you have to deal with no. Now you have to. It could cost something. It's not going to cost anything, and it just gets ugly. So I think there's an opportunity for it to be a courtesy call and to make sure and make people aware and give them opportunities to improve. But at the same time, how's that relationship, and how, what type of professionals, quote unquote, are they, have access to make those decisions?
It's all crap and needs to be replaced right now.
I don't know who sold you this stuff, but geez.
I don't know. Some guy named George.
It's always his fault. Always.
His fault. All right. From my buddies over at CE Pro, the 9 must-have tools for working with electrical wiring.
Oh, yeah.
Number 10 is the number to an electrician, which is my number 1 tool. George, let's be frank here. I mean, there are union considerations. There are local code considerations. But in general, I mean, there's we deal with low voltage stuff all the time, but there's still voltage involved in this. Is this a good list that Jason's put together, or is there something maybe that he may have overlooked?
No, I think he's got most of it down right there. I mean, look, you've got a multimeter, you've got your sort of to be able to see if there's continuity. Mm-hmm. My problem is, look, if you're not carrying at least 9 of these 10 tools with you when you go to any of your sites, what are you doing?
Right.
I mean, seriously, because it's like a guy going in to go look at Ethernet or a network and not having a laptop with him, or at minimum, a LAN tester. Mm-hmm. You're going in, you're going to have to troubleshoot stuff. All of these control systems and all the audio stuff, 90% of it's using screw terminals. 90% of it's got a power source. You've got to be able to test this stuff to go through your process and say, what is wrong? Let me go through the possibilities one by one, as I'm supposed to normally do in my procedure, and figure it out. And if you have to fix something, you should be able to do it. Are you just going to show up to some guy going, well, the audio is kind of creaky and it goes in and out every so often? Oh, yeah, you've got a loose wire here. I'll send a guy in 2 days. No. I mean, come on. We're not the cable company. Did I say that out loud? Gosh.
You usually just think that part.
But, when we were working on some training stuff, one of the things that we had to teach dealers, we didn't want to, and everybody resisted putting it into the syllabus, was what you should need to carry as a tool. Now, part of that started with us saying about Ethernet stuff, and hey, you should have Angry IP, and you should carry on this Y-Spy tool to understand what's going on with Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. But we found that people weren't carrying just even a tweaker. Not even a tweaker with just a flathead, let alone the one that could switch over into a Philips. Come on, guys. If you're in the business and you're putting this stuff together, even if you're a programmer, you're going to need to screw something in once in a while.
Yep, absolutely.
And you got to be able to know what a continuity tester does to go, is my RX and TX going to the right place? Doop. Hey, look at that.
Yeah, that's true. Bill, is there something that Jason may have overlooked in his list of electrical things? It's Friday. I'm snowed in. I'm tired.
No, I think it was exactly right. I was wondering, why wouldn't you would have at least these 9 things? And I guess it wasn't, for me it was like George mentioned, that it's not a must-have. It's like, if you don't have all these, what are you doing? And it is that type of thing that I don't want to say we can get lazy, or it can be downright dangerous because of without those standards. So if someone is going out and is going to touch electrical wires, and know that's a part of the project, and don't have these tools, Lord help you.
Yeah.
And so it is. I think it's exactly. It's a good list. It's kind of a common sense, more of a list there, and it's a shame that some people are going out without them, or that they have to be told that don't leave home without them.
Well, and you'd be surprised. George talked about manufacturers training. One of the thing in the 2 of the half a dozen manufacturers training that I've been in did something very simplistic, and they went through kind of a basic here's what you need to do analog. Here's what you need to do digital. Now, some of it was their stuff, but some of it wasn't. Some of it was simply a flathead. Some of it was simply a multimeter. They didn't care whose multimeter you bought because they didn't sell them at the time. I'm sure Crestron has one now. Sorry.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. They probably bought out Klein tools, because it's Randy's company. All right. There it is. Ooh, I'll be here all week. Sorry. Let's move on. The Google's having retail stores so they can sell glass. George, my 60-year-old father, came up to me the other day and said, "Hey, have you heard about these Google goggle thingies?" So I think they've hit the mainstream. Honestly, in all seriousness, Google Glass is Google's next greatest push, their next big push. And if you don't know what it is, it's a wearable computer, right? It's a pair of glasses with a computer inside. Now, ostensibly, you would think that they would sell more than just these glasses, but you know what? Who knows what they're thinking? What exactly do you think they're thinking when it comes to these retail stores?
I'm thinking that they see a lot of people making money, like Apple and Microsoft, by selling in actual retail environments, brick and mortar, and they go, we can do a little bit of that. I want some of that. And they do have some product lines now that I don't think a lot of people really know that Google makes. I mean, there's Chromebook, and there's the phones and stuff that they can sell from third parties. Mm-hmm. They have a number of things that are supposedly coming down the pipe that they could start selling. I don't think they'll be equal to, say, Apple, but they've got stuff that I would go and say, yes, I want to see how a Chromebook works before I go and purchase it. And I want to say, okay, now turn the internet off and show me that I can actually still write a Word document. And he'll go, no, you can't. But except for those little, nuanced, I'll say, failures, I think this is a good idea because brick and mortar still matters for at least the initial contact with the technology and with having your local person. Like, I love my Apple stuff, but I don't want to send it to Cupertine to get fixed. There's a place right down the street. I can make an appointment. They're going to fix it. I know the people. Yeah, I know they're retail kids, but still I, quote unquote, know the people. And I can get it fixed and I can get it done. And I don't have to wait 3 weeks for it to go there and back and get lost in UPS or whatever. So those kind of things still do matter. Would I go back? I don't know, unless if they were stagnant and that's all they started offering and it was just different colors, I'd probably just start ordering off of Google's site and be done with it. But if they keep innovating, it's a darn good idea.
Bill, is this kind of a weird little, I don't know, and it's almost like opposite day where Google, the internet giant, is opening a brick and mortar store?
Yeah, I was having a hard time. I read the article a couple of times now, and I was like, am I really, what? Did I see something wrong? I mean, and I don't know. I don't want to offend any, Apple or
offend
Mac
people. That's half the point of this show.
It's like, do you want us, do you want a competing store, the Google store, when and every there are people just hanging out there and just wear the glasses on and just touching stuff and just meandering around. I just didn't. I don't think those are the same type of people, and are they going to have the foot traffic a consistent level to support a brick and mortar store that will I guess will survive? I don't know. I don't know. I didn't get it, and maybe it's just me and the day that I read it, and I still don't. I still don't get it, but it seems kind of an interesting way. I thought everything was going virtual and online and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going, it's like Back to the Future, type of thing, and I just didn't see. I don't think it's a good idea.
Well, the other thing is, let me give you my conspiracy theory. They needed a tax break. They needed a loss leader that they could write off. So
yeah, but you can only do that for 5 years.
So in 5 years, they'll close the stores. Well, you watch. What is this, 2013?
Yeah. And Intel's going to buy Control 4. So.
It wasn't Intel. It was Cisco. And they still might. Dang it. All right, let's wrap up with a couple of fun discussions. First of all, my buddies over at BBC, and the reason I'm mentioning that is you'll see, have written an article saying, have 3D films had their day? Even though they're showing Doctor Who's 50th anniversary in 3D. But I digress. Basically saying, I'm really still bugged about the fact that Doctor Who's going to be in 3D. 3D revenue rather is falling. Attendance is down. Honestly, the number of releases is actually down. Bill, have we moved beyond this this round at least of 3D paranoia, or not paranoia, but 3D?
I like that better.
Yeah, paranoia. Yeah, I'll say it. 3D paranoia. Yeah, have we moved beyond this round of 3D stuff?
I don't know. In some cases, I think there has to be some, I guess, rebranding of 3D, because the only time that when I think of 3D and my kids and stuff, it's like 3D is coming at me. So there's only so many times I'm going to sit in a theater and someone's going to spit water at me, or something's going to fly over my head, like it's going to fly up and it's just really is that the only 3D experience that I'm going to pay an extra for? And you're running out of things. And then when you do classics in 3D, what? Why? And so I think the paranoia is going away until, or less, it'll be rebrand, and we're okay, now this is what 3D means. You're going, it's going to be a part of you. I don't know. It's just, it has to be something else, or I think, having the axe come at you, like you're, if you're in a horror movie, or something, that is, all it is. And I think it's it's played itself out.
George, 3D paranoia, go.
It's like just free form. I loved reading this title. You know that.
Yes.
Those who don't know me know. I just love 3D. Yeah, I do. No, I don't.
Well, here's the thing. Before you start that, our good friend Don Mead wrote a wonderful blog article, good Lord, probably a year and a half ago now, about the history of 3D. This is not the first go-around, which is kind of why I asked Bill the question the way I did.
Does nobody remember Vincent Price?
Well, not just Vincent Price, but like back to the 20s or 30s.
Yeah, the stereoscope.
Yeah. So are we? Is this just kind of this round's demise?
I think we need to divide it, and I've matured in my process of thought on 3D, which is for the home theater and for the home use and gaming, bunk. I don't think it's going to be much of anything, except for the thing that Microsoft was talking about. But remind me to get back to that in just a second. But for home and small venue, I don't think it's really something that's of any value. For scientific, medical, for training, for specialty immersed environments, that's where they're going to really succeed. And anything else is just showing itself what's coming out in 3D. It's kids' movies. It's these little cartoons that are lovely, but no one really cares if they're 3D. They're going because that's all that's offered at the time that their kids are able to go to see the movie.
Yeah.
I know my kids don't give a hoot if it's 3D or not. They just want to watch the movie. Back to the Microsoft thing, they're talking about whole room projection, sort of immersive projection system, sort of like what we do here at World Stage, which is that sort of media mapping, or that sort of server and wall mapping stuff, where it can actually look at the room, map it, and then everything you do is sort of projected around you, and that becomes an immersive, quote-unquote, 3D thing. That I can see working for gaming and for training and visualization stuff, but I'm not going to watch a movie with it thinking I'm right next to Gwyneth Paltrow in Great Expectations.
Wow, that was the analogy you used? Great Expectations?
It was the first one I thought of.
Wow. We could, like,
it's a long day. It's not snowing here, but it was a long day.
I was wondering where that was going.
Yeah, Great Expectations. Good book. Yeah, sorry. All right. Last but not least, from Gizmodo, because I think the Eric Leimer, who wrote the article, had a deadline and just said, "Hey, let's think of this." The article was, "What's the best Wi-Fi network name you've ever seen?" And beyond the FBI surveillance van, which I saw more than once, the one that I personally got a kick out of was the Judean People's Front and the People's Front of Judea.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's a Monty Python reference for those of you in the middle of it now. So, George, what's some of the ones that you either have seen or were chuckled by on this list?
You know, I've seen articles like this in the past, and I've seen a few of these names come up again and again. But I feel so boring though, because I name them either after Greek gods or the planets, and that doesn't seem to be as exciting as these. But I did see when I was in Boston, I was in Harvard, and in Boston, I saw in where the dormitories are in both those locations, someone who wrote free internet, complete with the apostrophes and the ones after it. Which always made me suspicious. Like, okay, free internet. It always seemed like a trap. And then there was one when I was renting an apartment in Yonkers before I moved into my house, in which the name was Yonkers Solid Waste Depot 2. And it's in the middle of a residential. I think they did it just to bug people out, because I'm like, why would there be a solid waste depot here?
Jeez. All right, Mr. Brown, what's some of the best ones you've seen?
Well, mine is Sixburg, and it says where I'm from and what is my football team, and so I thought I was being creative with that and let the neighborhood know that I was representing the Steeler Nation. But a couple of years ago, we got a new neighbor, and his we were trying to figure out meet the neighbors, and his it popped up, forget about it, and it was like, I was like, okay, it's like, okay, I think we know where this guy is from, or or something, and so we saw the FBI surveillance van, and it freaked us out. It freaked my wife out first, and then she was like, "They must be kidding," because she's looking, But I think more than anything on the list, I just got a chuckle at it. And I have not been as creative as you guys have been in this, and so it was kind of a fun read.
Yeah. Another really good one was this reader's name. Their computer is named Major Tom, and their Wi-Fi is named Ground Control. So
that's cool. I like that.
That was also a very good.
That's
one,
reaching back.
Yeah. Well, it's still a good album, dude. Come on.
Yes, it is.
All right, that's gonna do it for us this week, at least for me. I'm gonna go home and go back to bed now because apparently I need it. With this has been Mr. George Tucker from World Stage. How can people get a hold of you, find you, read the stuff that you write online, sir?
I am Tucker2s on Twitter. I am on all the social. I'm just a social media whore. So if it's out there, you'll find me there somewhere under Tucker2s. I do some work for Technology Tell, and there are fabulous AVNation shows that I am held part of: AV Social, Live Life, and DIY. Take a listen.
All right, thank you, sir. And also with us is the client technology advocate at BD Brown Communications. His name is Bill Brown. How can people find you, sir?
People can find me on Twitter at Ideas for AV, and I have a Facebook page of Ideas for AV, and the Ideas for AV is a project, an initiative to help technology people in technology kind of collaborate and work better to solve problems. So that is the what you'll see online, under those two monikers. So, but my email is billb@ideasforav.com.
My name is Tim Albright, TD, Tim David Albright, on the old Twitterverse. But more importantly for me and everybody here, please go by the website, avnation.tv. avnation.tv, you can find us there. You can find us on Facebook. Google, Twitter, and every place else. Also, check out, I guess about a month or so ago, we started doing a show for Infocom, which is, you know what, it's this is going to sound conceited, but I'm awfully impressed with it. And I'm not saying that because I do it, because I don't. George has hosted more than I have at this point. I'm very proud of them. So check them out if you would. There'll be a page on our website, but also on Infocom's as well. The one that was released this week was one that George, in fact, hosted on AV.
IT for AV.
I was going to say AV for IT networks, but AV, IT for AV. So
You've got your IT in my AV.
No. Stop it. So yeah, check that out if you would. It's called Infocom Today. Go by iTunes, and you can check it out there. And like I said, also on Infocom's website and ours as well. So thank you so much for listening. That's all the time we have for AV Week.